What screams rich butthole? I was in a meeting with the medical director for my old company a few years back. He was telling a story how he refuses to put a front plate on his fancy sports car and would rather just pay the $200 fine every time he got written up for a ticket. At the time I was broke and taking a series of buses and trains to work. If the penalty for a crime is a fine, then that law only exists for the lower class. Final Fantasy Tactics 1997. My uncle, who was an incredibly successful heart surgeon at the time, once took me to a show in downtown Austin. When we got to the venue, there was nowhere to park. He rolled up to an area that had yellow stripes everywhere and big no parking signs. I pointed out that we can't park there, but he just replied, nah, it just costs $400 something to park here. I do it all the time. They won't tow a Porsche. He was right. They didn't tow his car and just gave him a ticket. This is why I don't like the concept of tickets. Tickets only affect those who can't afford to pay them. I made a comment one time that getting a Christmas tree was just too much effort. They asked why BC you just schedule an appointment. How hard is that? They bring the tree and set it up and do all the decorating for you. I'm sorry, what? This person had no idea that normal people do not just order a tree that is delivered and set up and decorated, and then taken away, every year. My sister works at a fancy private school, and she tells me rich butthole stories all the time. I think the worst though is this one student who is a foreign student that is literally a princess from a royal family in a country that I won't name for privacy reasons. But she demands that the staff address her as royalty, and demands students at the school be forced to treat her respectfully. My sister also told me that a trend has happened throughout the school where students will reference each other with royal monikers like Your Highness or My Lord to pee her off. Because if everyone is addressed like royalty, then in the end it means nothing anymore. Having mommy and daddy throw enough money around to make problems go away and get what you wanted in the end. Guy I knew growing up, and then we ended up at same college. His dad was some bigwig real estate guy. Mom was an heiress to well-known brand. He was very status conscious and knew he could always buy way out of trouble. Always some shady, borderline illegal scheme to make more money, usually so he could buy himself a Rolex or crap. Anyway, our university was pretty elite, but he wanted to go to the bests in his area of study, so he planned to transfer. He got like a 3.98 GPA, couldn't buy off a paid teacher to get an A, but because he was an entitled jerk couldn't get professors willing to write letters of recommendation. So he forged one, mailed it out, but forgot postage, and got discovered when it went returned to sender to a professor who hadn't written it. His parents flew down, made a giant donation to our school, and the administration didn't inform his intended university of his he got in. He left our school, got his best degree, and last I heard was working on Wall Saint. I'm always amazed he hasn't ended up in prison for some sort of white collar crap. Makes me sick. My friend went to a rich kid's school, wasn't rich herself, got in on scholarship, but she has the craziest spoiled rich kid stories. One of them is when she overheard a girl complaining about her family going to Italy for the summer because she wanted to go back to Spain. She was on the verge of tears about how she never gets what she wants. Mine was the girl in my high school who was upset because daddy bought her a brand new BMW 3 Series and she was upset because she wanted a Land Rover. Ended up crashing the car and got her Land Rover after all. When an 18-year-old flashes his new house he bought with his own money in Instagram, followed by, "What have you guys been up to?" I have a doctor customer who owes me money. Man got the nerve to have 3 personal luxury vehicles, lives alone, but can't cut me a check when I come to service his house. Not paying your freaking staff. My boyfriend's ex-boss didn't pay my boyfriend, his only worker, for 6 months, crying that clients weren't paying for their services, while he walked my boyfriend through his brand new, renovated kitchen. Frick outta here with that crap. Why is your BF working without pay is the real question. When I had trouble paying for college, my aunt suggested I use financial aid and proceeds to tell me how they had to lie about their income and where their daughter was staying to get it. And on the application they listed her trip to the Bahamas as mission work. They laughed because their daughter couldn't even stand to look at those dirty children, but they wrote it up like she was teaching them the Bible. Wow, that is really an butthole move. First thing that comes to mind is this. I was in middle school, and a group of kids were hanging out and I knew two of them, so I went to talk to them. Girl drops her phone intentionally. It was an iPhone 8, and at the time it was the newest thing. Brand new phone too. She threw it on the ground again on the linoleum floor. The phone screen cracked. After that I asked why she did that because those are super expensive. She said it didn't matter because her mom would just buy her a new one. Me. 2 nights ago, 3 buttholes came in to eat at the restaurant I work at, more than an hour late for their reservation and roughly 75 minutes before we were legally required by the city to kick them out. COVID curfews are still in effect. If you get caught you risk losing your liquor license. When we dropped the check and explained the situation, they screamed that it was unacceptable because they had spent so much money with us. Guess what? Other people spent more than you that same night, and they were on time. We're not interested in risking a whole business and a few dozen people's jobs because you can't tell time and think that the world is going to stop for you. Yeah, this always frick me off. We've spent bajillions in your bar. You can't just kick us out. You paid for a service. Service is now ended. Get expecting special treatment by default. Store employees, bars, clubs, restaurants, cutting to the front of lineups. Being confused why someone doesn't just replace something that's getting worn. That is, shoes, old phone models, gaming consoles, house repairs, decor. Wasn't there a video of some guy that got choked out after headbutting a waiter? That video just screams rich butthole. I used to do character day party gigs in lab. Those who were middle class or less would always tip me too much, feed me too much, and I would meet everyone in their family. When I worked the elite in Beverly Hills or Pacific Palisades mansions, I would never meet the parents. They wouldn't be at the party. I would be wandering around the party as Darth Vader or Batman, mostly blind, asking people where the parents were so I could get paid and get going. Only for the butler to take me aside and hand me an envelope with exact change of how much they owed me. He walking around a party dressed as Batman asking where the parents are is hilarious. Oh dear God. I grew up in Dubai and boy did I come across some textbook rich buttholes. The place I worked at had a fine for smoking in the toilet. One day I caught an Emirati customer smoking a pipe in there, because of course he was smoking a pipe. I told him he was going to be fined DHS 100, around $30. He looked at me, laughed and said, make the fine 10,000. That way at least it feels like a fine. So I did. Honorable mentions. Tiger in Bentleys, diamond studded anything, gold plated cars, walking around a mall with an exotic cat who is clearly uncomfortable. Dubai. I had a ridiculously rich landlord once, owned who knows how many houses, enough acreage to make a large US county, and a plane. Tried to complain to me because I, the person paying rent, wasn't doing anything to improve his freaking house that I was paying him to live in. B. It's your house. You improve it. Privileged butthole. OMG, my ex was full of them. Here's a few. Always buying new clothes, shoes, or accessories compulsively because you should be willing to invest in your appearance at all times, which I can agree with to an extent, but not in Burberry. He'd drop at least $5k per visit, refusing to eat at a restaurant that is part of a chain and complaining to the people who are buying you dinner there about it. Making fun of the waitstaff too. Laughing at homeless people and thinking they're a joke. Making fun of people purely based on their attire or car they drive. There's a reason he's my ex now. That first one reminded me of an ex who owned over $12,000 worth of socks. They were generally a decent person, but I knew it wasn't going to work when I learned that they spent more than my mother's yearly income on food and alcohol in a month. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Them we don't have any more money than you guys do and we are able to save a lot. Also them we had to pay $167,000 in taxes this year. How are you guys getting a refund? They obviously have way more money than us with that tax bill. I mean, you should be telling people you don't make as much as them. They're just dumb cause they didn't realize that saying they pay a lot of taxes reveals it. Being rude to service workers. I had a rich friend in middle school. We would go to a Chick-fil-A after school and he was rude to the workers. I told him in cashier's earshot that the workers get to your food first. Who knows what they can do to it? Friend had a 180 turnaround to service workers after that. Workers be like, he is the chosen one. People who answer statements of "oh I wish I had this" with "just buy it. If I could buy it without being stressed out, wouldn't I have bought it already? Idiot." Ugh. Used to have one of those girls in class back in HS. She'd actually mock us for being dumb or overthinking it whenever we're talking, complaining at some expensive phone or gaming rig or even just a game. The kicker was at first jokingly, moniker we gave her rich people syndrome or RPS. Yet she just adopted it proudly. Like, these people exist lol. My cousin's wife, very rich, stayed at our house while she and my cousin were in town. She brought her dog with her. One day we went out to pick up some groceries and run some errands. She decided to stay home by herself. While we were out, our dog got sick in our house. When we got home, a few hours later, she calmly came downstairs and said, "Oh, while you were out the dog got sick," and she pointed at the spot, expecting us to clean it up for her. I can't imagine what her life was like that led her to not immediately clean up her dog's own crap. Instead she just let it sit there for hours, stressing out waiting for the help. Ugh haha. I work for the post office in Arizona. Our office services several rich neighborhoods where half its residents have multiple homes. We constantly get people who pull up in their nice new Caddy or Lexus or whatever. They come in and tell us they're leaving to go to their summer home, and then they buy stamps and be about how they used to be 4 cents or whatever. Dude, you're retired with multiple homes and cars. You golf all day and you clearly have enough money that I shouldn't have to hear you be about buying a 55-cent stamp. Frick off. Complaining about the price of a pizza, not tipping, and driving away in your Corvette. I work at a pizza place, so this might be a little specific. Corvettes aren't as expensive as you think they are. People in million-dollar mansions with pools and outdoor space, who, during the lockdown part of the pandemic, pretended to have it just as bad as everyone else. Yes, or the people living in giant houses with massive gardens saying, "I really don't understand why everyone is complaining so much about lockdown. Just enjoy the slower pace of life." Meanwhile the people next door are living in tiny apartments with no outside space, working from the end of their bed. Selling flights to outer space for $28 million while reviewing $10 billion in government bailout and having a net worth of $193 billion yourself. If they say you can be just as ruck as me if you work hard enough, like shut up, dude. Your great grandfather ran a textile mill and your oldest ancestor was William the Conqueror. Me and my family are Scottish. Tipping isn't much of a thing here. My mother and I aren't very well off at all. We got by, but we never got by easily. On a family holiday to New York for an auntie's wedding, which we couldn't afford and my gran had to help pay for, my mum and I were working with a backpacker's budget. We didn't eat much fancy or go anywhere expensive. At my aunt's wedding breakfast, we ate the cheapest things we could since we were all going in on a bill together. There were at least 8+ guests who were seriously high earners, lawyers, a higher up in Facebook, etc. We were expected to pay for their freaking extravagant butt breakfasts and mimosas. We didn't even have a coffee to save as it was our last day. My mother and I had given so many tips, and we didn't understand how the coins worked, so we just gave all our change to anyone we saw asking. We bought about 8 strangers coffee. You'd think us mugs, but honestly we just wanted to see some people warm up and be somewhere safe for the January morning. 8+ people who make 8 figures a year at least got bitchy at my mum and I for demanding they tip the staff. We even made sure to clarify they understood how service staff were paid there compared to home. My future uncle-in-law really hit me with, and they ought to get a better job. On top of that, they were just snide and rude to our server because, surprise surprise, 10 breakfasts are hard to make in 5 minutes. The server was an angel and I ended up tipping her a 20 when we left, as it was all I had spare. When I was a hairdresser, we used to have this guy come in 1-3 times a week, mostly just to straighten his hair but sometimes wash, color or cut, and every single time he would question the price, which was always the same, and hesitate on if he thought it was worth it or not, and then he'd pay cash out of his designer wallet and drive off in his Lamborghini. A penny pinched is a penny cinched. Installing workplace wellness booths in your warehouses instead of paying your employers higher wages, improving working conditions, and cutting down on mandatory overtime. This woman, look the picture of living on family money. In my drive-through once hung her card out of her car window, refused to look at or talk to me and expected me to lean out the window to tap the card machine on it. I almost thought rich butthole until she sped off to the next window and her card declined. Nice Range Rover, nails and fears idiot. Maybe save some of daddy's money for some food love. A heavy-duty work pickup truck, loaded with $60,000 worth of upgrades and add-ons, without a scratch or a speck of dirt. Making a bunch of posts on FB about how nobody wants to work hard at the business you own, while claiming you can't afford to pay them a livable wage or you'd go under. All posted from the comfort of your lakefront McMansion. I was listening to a podcast and one person said, cut unemployment benefits because the economy needs an underpaid working class in order to function. No one called him out on that WTF logic. Buys everything she wants for him herself but is very cheap when it comes to treating friends or buying gifts for her so. My doctor, who always wears the biggest and most obnoxiously gold fricking watch imaginable. Guy always seems like I'm wasting his time. I went in a few months ago because I felt a lump under my skin, and he was dismissive and said there wasn't anything there. After some protest, he finally ordered an ultrasound. As he was walking me out, he said trust me, there is no mass there and opened the door for me to leave. I had a angiolipoma that was easily found. Obnoxious accessories and a you're wasting my time demeanor is the worst. Wearing Salvatore Ferragamo driving loafers. +10 if wearing shorts. +20 if stepping out of an Italian sports car while wearing shorts. For your information, where I live, 100% of these types are Persian dudes with receding hairlines. I own a pet sitting company. They get irritated when I add additional fees for caring for countless amount of plants' flowers. They book us a few months out and when we get there they inform us day of that the whole house is going to be under renovation. Loud workers coming in and out while we are staying over there. They simply get out of Dodge because they don't want to be there. Often the fricking bathrooms or kitchen is completely gutted and unusable. Unfinished marble kitchen countertops where you can't even place a glass without a coaster. After 2 years plus of quality services they still demand immediate text responses, including photos. They're paid to insert whatever. Yeah, I get it Gary, this is their minimum wage job. But you can throw your fricking popcorn out on the way out of the movie theater and not be an butthole. Flying to Cancun while your state is experiencing the worst snowstorm in decades and people are freezing in their homes with no power, food, or running water. Influencing cryptocurrency via Twitter for your own benefit even though you are already the richest man on earth. Had a guy call us out to service and repair fixtures in his house. As soon as we get there and inspect everything and give him his options as for how he wants to go about things for how much $. He says that people like us look at his mansion. It's whatever. I've worked on nicer construction sites and try to upsell our services. We tell him no, we give options that include the bare minimum fix and that we charge a rich person the same we charge a poor person. After a few minutes of grumbling he decides he wants half the bare minimum fix and as I'm working he's talking about his 20+ rental houses and apartment buildings that he charges above average prices and then goes on with the fricking audacity of a tone deaf goat gets emotional to downright angry when he hears the left are trying to raise minimum wage to $15 because they don't understand good business. Bro, learn to pay your workers what they say is right. Don't be a dong to your tenants. And don't be mad people on the bottom rung just want to have a shot at a good life again. Posimo. Thinking a big inheritance is normal. I've talked to so many people who casually talk about how a grandparent left them 6 figures like it's the most natural thing in the world. When people in my family die, we have to figure out how to pay for their funeral, not who gets their money. Rich people pretending to care about people and attending charity events to just show how much they care. Talking about environment or climate change, and taking initiative to fix something which they broke it in first place. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.